Sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with that because it's boiling in my room. So, hi, my name is Leah, and for my Zenith project, I wanted to take on something kind of ambitious. So, throughout freestyle, we've always been told by Mr. T that he's never had a successful film noir. So I decided to do it. But I didn't just want to like write and film film noir because I'm not into that. I find that boring. Sorry. So I did it the only way I really know how, and it's through the lens of costume design. I am studying production design with a concentration on costumes at CalArts next year. Subtle brag. And I wanted to take a film noir movie that I'd never seen before and redesign the costumes and then see the difference between what I did and what they did. I chose the movie Double Identity, directed by Billy Wilder? Yes. Okay, so I chose the 1944 classic film Double Identity, directed by Billy Wilder and starring the one and only Barbara Stanwyck and Fred McMurray. I don't know, I'm a Barbara Stanwyck fan. So, the movie is about an insurance man, Walter Neff, who gets, shall we say, involved with a rich housewife named Phyllis Dietrichson in a plot to murder her husband for insurance money. Yep, this movie is one of the most famous film noirs of all time, and it features one of the most famous femme fatale characters. Hi, it's Editing Leah. I just realized I forgot to tell you who the costume designer for Double Identity was. It was literally Edith Head. It was esteemed costume designer Edith Head, So, what is film noir? Film noir is a style of filmmaking, in my opinion. It's a contentious issue based on definitions that tends to be placed between 1939 and 1959. This was a time in Hollywood where movies were kind of just being churned out. So it was a genre that was created out of a lack of resources. So limited amounts of sets, an emphasis on shadows and on smoke, and all kinds of cool stuff. First thing I did is I went through my script and I broke it down. I had a couple of main categories, 4 highlighter colors, 4 scene notes, character notes, extra things I needed to note, and then the blue pen, which I call snarky comment pen, because I can't get through things without making snarky comments. And then each character had a different color pen that I used to highlight notes about them. Gave up on that kind of quickly, but you get the spirit. I'm gonna put up pictures of the work I did, so you can get an example of what my notes and my breakdowns look like. So, I took notes on scenes, and then on my second go through on the script, I noted every time that there was a new costume or a costume change. In the first half of the script, I counted around 18 costumes. Editing Leah again, I counted 21 costumes. Most of them either for Phyllis or for Neff. Obviously, they're the 2 main characters. The examples I have to show you are 3 from Phyllis, 1 from Phyllis's stepdaughter, Lola. We'll get into that in a bit later. But first, I want to talk a bit about my design process. So, as I mentioned, I went through the script and I highlighted important notes, character beats, and scene notes. All things that would be important to go into a wardrobe. I coordinated a color palette for each character. For example, I wanted Phyllis to be in reds and Walter to be in cool grays. I put Lola in a lot of purples and pinks because she's young and kind of naive, and Mr. Dietrichson in just very neutral grays. Okay, so after I did all that, I went on Pinterest and I made mood boards as my research portion. I'm a very visual person and I wanted a physical thing that I could look at and put my ideas down on. So I'll put up pictures of what each one looked like. I get a lot of my inspiration for my costumes from vintage sewing patterns from the time period. I always think that those are incredibly important in looking at what what people were wearing at the time, because keep in mind this is before the complete rise of mass manufactured clothing that we see, you know, really predominantly beginning in the 80s. People did not own a lot of clothing, and what they did, a lot of people sewed themselves. I went straight to Simplicity and McCall sewing patterns on Pinterest and kind of got a really good sense of what silhouettes looked like. So for Phyllis, I went with a very standard 1930s look. Very big poofy shoulders, which was brought into fashion by Joan Crawford. That's a very funny story. I don't have time to get into it, but just look up Joan Crawford and shoulder pads. Kind of funny. 30s tend to get overshadowed by both the 20s and the 40s and 50s, which is understandable. The 20s had a very unique and kind of out of nowhere fashion sense, and the 1940s and 50s is of course, you know, iconic post-war fashion. So in terms of silhouette, the 1930s kind of harkens back to the early 1900s, 1910s, in that we have that cinched waist and a longer kind of shapeless skirt. Not too big, very casual, very light, and you didn't have to wear too many under layers beneath it. I went for this very standard 1938 silhouette taken directly from a Simplicity pattern from 1934. I'll put up pictures of patterns and general vibes that I'm going for. For example, this Simplicity 34-33. And then, for Walt, men's fashion is boring. That's the thing I found. Men's fashion hadn't really progressed between the 1800s and 1930s. Three-piece suit and a hat. It's kind of it. I mean, it's not a top hat anymore, I guess. But we see a bit more casual workplace clothing, slightly. There's kind of a different shape to the slacks as well. They're a lot less fitted and they're slightly looser, kind of lighter. But, you know, he'd be wearing a three-piece suit for the most part. It's just a matter of colors. Wouldn't even actually matter because it's in black and white, so I didn't have much to do. I have this picture, which is a Korean drawing reference of various styles of waistcoat. I think the one I'm going for is the one up there on the top right. Oh, here we go. This is pictures from the Carrie collection. These are the kind of things that we would often see people with. I can't remember what year this is from. Here. This one is from 1927. Things would not really change in terms of men's fashion between 1927 and 1938. General styles. As I mentioned, I wanted him in cool grays to represent this kind of like smooth talker guy. I don't know. Now that being said, let's get into some of the designs. There are 4 that I wanted to show off today. We'll go in scene order. So the first one is the first full outfit we see Phyllis in when Walter first shows up in her home. So in the script, it is described as a light blue sundress with pom-pom slippers and a gold anklet. So this first dress, I'll put a picture up, obviously. This one is based off of the Simplicity 2303 pattern, but it is from the late 30s. I kind of took direct inspiration for that sort of high halter line with the belt and the pockets. The heels would likely be kitten heels because they're house slippers instead of formal heels, so that would be about. Next is scene A38. A38 is when we meet Mr. Dietrichson for the first time, I believe. Features in this outfit that needed to be there are the high heels, a bright print, and a wide sash on her hips. And so I came up with this. This one's my favorite. I think the pattern is really fun. The length is far more appropriate than you have those trademark 1938 sleeves with a clashing collar, kind of, where the lining would be folded outwards so it exposes the white as opposed to the pattern. I picked a black sash just so it wouldn't clash with everything else. So I found this index of patterns and colors that would be common in the 30s, and I found that there was a lot of gingham and flannel type, so I kind of went wild with the colors. I'm really into it. Next is the scene that I shot, scene A43. This one is a lot more early 40s because fashion was progressing and the idea of the new look did come out of nowhere. It's based on a dress that I actually own, which turned out to be weirdly 1930s, conveniently. It was my 8th grade graduation dress. This is a picture of me wearing it in 8th grade. And it has the combination Queen Anne's sweetheart neckline with the cinched in waist and the kind of falling skirt. You'll see it a bit more in the scene. And the last one is B2. This is the first outfit we see Lola in. And it is based on another authentic sewing pattern. I believe it is the McCall's 7927. I'll put a picture up of it and you can see directly where it takes inspiration from. I did a bit of decoration on the neckline to give it a bit of a more ornate feeling. And because she's a teenager, the hemline would be raised up a bit, but you have those very big poofy sleeves and the sash thing is white. So, those are my 4 favorite costumes that I designed. I had a couple more, but they're mostly suits. Let me tell you what I filmed. I got 2 friends to help me out. Ryan will be playing Walter, and Ash will be playing Phyllis. We shot the entirety of scene A42 when they officially concoct a plan to kill Mr. Dietrichson. I know Mr. T says not to poison the well before we show our stuff, but I'm gonna poison the well. I'm sorry. I think it looks good. I wasn't able to get any wide shots just because of setup for both based on lighting and based on COVID restrictions. I needed to have my actors apart from each other, so I apologize for that, but have fun.
It's about time you said you were glad to see me.
I knew you wouldn't leave it like that.
Like what?
Like it was this afternoon.
I must have said something to give you such a terribly wrong impression. You must surely see that. You must never think anything like that about me, Walter.
Okay.
It's not okay. Not if you don't believe me.
What do you want me to do?
I want you to be nice to me. Like the first time you came to the house.
It can't be like the first time. Something has happened.
I know it has. It's happened to us.
That's what I mean. What's the matter now?
I feel as though you were watching me. Not that he cares about me, not anymore, but he keeps me on the leash. So tight I can't breathe. I'm scared.
What of? He's in Long Beach, isn't he?
I oughtn't to have come.
Maybe you ought.
You want me to go?
If you want to.
Right now?
Sure, right now. Soda?
Just plain water, thanks.
You know, about 6 months ago, a guy slipped on the soap in his bathtub and knocked himself cold and drowned. Only he had accident insurance, so they had an autopsy, and she didn't get away with it.
Who didn't?
His wife. There was another case where a guy was found shot, and his wife said he was cleaning a gun, and his stomach got in the way. All she collected was a 3 to 10 stretch into atrophy.
Perhaps it was worth it for her.
See if you can carry this as far as the living room.
Wow, wasn't that interesting? I know. Anyway, the most important thing when filming a film noir is lighting. You need some harsh. I borrowed this massive tungsten light from Mr. T. It is bright and it is boiling hot. So to film that, I put my actors in front of the tungsten. Again, Ryan and Ash, I'm sorry, I love you guys. And I lowered the aperture and f-stop so it would be very dark everywhere else but very concentrated on Ryan and Ash. Like, after I was done with that, I changed the grade to black and white and I was not happy with it. I didn't think it was enough. So, I did my favorite thing in filmmaking, color correction. So, I lowered the exposure and I increased the contrast and the shadows, while also increasing the white and the highlights. Basically, that creates a very harsh contrast between things. You make the black a lot blacker and the white's kind of lighter to contrast that, which gives it a very harsh edge. Overall, I think it looks pretty dope. The scene itself is not good, I'll contend. I didn't fully succeed, but it looks like a film noir. It looks like it. It looks like it. And I'm proud of myself for it. I'm proud of the costumes I made, well designed. I think this was a fairly successful final project freestyle. And I hope you will enjoy.